Call the meeting to order, East Bay Charter Township. If you'll all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Anna, can we get a roll call, please?
Sure. Richardson.
Here.
Ferguson.
Here.
Walters.
Present.
Gonzalez.
Yep.
Wassam.
Present.
Straight.
Here.
And Leonard.
Here. Thank you. Next up is the agenda. Any conflict of interest that needs to be declared this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for Wednesday, August 5th, 2026.
Support.
Thank you. We have a motion by Carl, seconded by Rhonda for approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next up is public comment. Anyone can jump on up to the mic. You'll have up to 3 minutes to make a comment. Step right up.
Thank you for hearing me.
No worries.
I'm Steve Balke. I live at 288 High Lake Road, and busy road, just up the street from Cortade Store. I still call it that. I've lived there for over 40 years. I have an existing 4-foot chain link fence around the south part of my property. Not completely encompassing it. I live on Tibbetts Lake, so, the woods is sacrosanct to me on the lakeside. I had a huge white pine come down on one side of it in June and smashed it and stretched it, and I thought, I've been putting up with increased noise, and I thought, well, maybe it's time to replace it instead of repairing it. So I engaged a contractor to give me an estimate for my insurance to repair and also to give me a quote on putting a PVC fence up. I got it. The price was acceptable, and I thought, I should check with the township. I know the zoning rules have changed. So I stopped in here and I talked with Claire one morning and was informed that I can't put anything higher than 3 feet in my front yard. That concerns me. I'd like to see some flexibility. The road has changed significantly in 40 years. We now have ATVs running up and down the road. The speed limit is 55 miles an hour. Huge number of delivery trucks, construction vehicles, semis, fuel haulers. Shake the house sometimes when they go by. And the store faces my bedroom window. The front of my house to the front door is 33 feet from the right-of-way line. To the wall where my bedroom is 43 feet. So I look down and I can see the lights and everything else in the store. I've always been able to, but it's changed. It's corporate now. Sometimes they get fuel deliveries at 4 a.m. So I'm wondering, Claire suggested that I come and speak at this meeting because maybe some flexibility can be added to the new ordinance. When you live on a lake, your front yard is the lake side of your house. That's where the common living areas are. In the backside, the normal front yard is where your bedrooms are and my kitchen. So they face the road. My living area faces the lake. So the Lakes District is kind of different in that, people's front yard can be their backyard. Their technical front yard is what we consider our backyard. I look at the back of my neighbor's garage from my front yard. So I'm appealing to you for some relief so that I could go ahead and maintain my sanity with some peace and quiet, at least reflective, the fence I wanted to put up a 6-foot fence, white PVC. There's one identical to it on 4 Mile Road, just north of the roundabout, on the east side of the road. And I don't remember seeing it, so it looked brand new to me. But it's the identical fence, and, it's a nice-looking fence. But I don't know what you all can do for me, but I'm here to appeal.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
We typically don't get into like kind of a back and forth live, but this is just kind of a good place to put it on our radar. So
Yeah.
we appreciate it, and we'll talk with Claire kind of offline, and maybe we'll have some loop back in the future.
Yeah, she was most helpful. And here I am. It's thanks to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your time, Steve.
Hi, I'm Susan Him. I live over at the Pine Grove subdivision over by 3 Mile. And I know that there was a hotel that was supposed to gone up on that corner at 3 Mile and 31, and it didn't, and now they're doing something else. I am more worried about people trying to make left turn lanes from anything in that intersection due to the fact the traffic is extremely heavy and very dangerous. I'm hoping that when you look at the plans for this new hotel, apartment, pool, restaurant, that you're going to take some in consideration on how they're going to make sure that people can't make left turns onto either 31 or onto 3 Mile. Because it's very close, no matter what they do, it's going to be very close to the intersection itself. That's my main concern.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Susan. Only a couple others. Okay, we'll close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back for correspondence. Claire, didn't see anything new, but anything we need to touch on?
Nope, just that you see in your packet that Acme Township adopted their master plan.
Okay. And next up, we'll go down to reports with Mindy at the Township Board.
Last month's meeting was primarily, had to do with the audit and the results of the audit. East Bay Township is in really good standing. They had basically the highest level of audit that we can get. So that's awesome. We continue to work on the sewer project, so as everybody has seen it down. The question was, have we gotten past the really bad parts yet? And the answer is no. We've gotten some really great projects, and all those tanks that are down there on the corner of, what is that? 3 Mile and Parsons, is that right? Is that Parsons? Across from the fire barn. Those are all in case there's a problem, so they are all empty, and we hope they stay empty. So,
Okay. Thank you for that. Paul, over to ZBA.
Yeah, at our last meeting, we took up a setback relief request from some residents in the Forest Lake area, and that had previously been tabled for additional information. And at the same meeting, there was still information missing, so we have once again tabled the decision until next time.
Okay.
September will be the next meeting.
Questions for Paul? Okay. Back to Claire, planning and zoning.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So we broke ground on the Safe Routes to School project trail on Monday, so that was exciting. We've had quite a few organizational meetings. This morning, we met with all of the schools, with the GTACs, Grand Traverse Academy, TCAPS, kind of coordinating everything. We've been coordinating with the contractor, so Elmer's got both the Safe Routes to School Trail project as well as the Hammond Road. So we have a website where we're updating. I can send out a link to the project website, but we've got it on our township website, and we're sending out information both from Grand Traverse County Road Commission and from the township with the Safe Routes to School pathway, just to kind of keep the communication updated, and then that will be the centralized location where parents and students can go to get those updates. So
Nice.
yeah, it's exciting. We will be presenting a contract also with Elmer's. Elmer's was the sole bid for the Civic Plaza, all of the landscaping, lighting, and signage. So that will be in front of the Township Board Monday evening. Also wanted to mention, we have a AI zoning assistant tool that is on our website now, and so we're kind of just in the initial testing phase. There's a local contractor who has been providing this for other townships as well, and so I've done some different testing. It's a really nice resource we're going to really share it out to residents where you can kind of go in and ask very specific questions and get a pretty robust answer related to your setbacks, what's permitted, what's not. And so we have found it to be quite accurate and quite helpful. So we've got our zoning ordinance in there. We have all of our short-term rental information. We have our other general law, police power ordinances in there, water, sewer ordinances, and so it's something that we'll continue to refine, but we're excited to kind of roll that out for the community, just to provide a kind of that added level of responsiveness for zoning questions.
Interesting.
Next thing I wanted to mention is I sent out an email today, but MEDC has their Redevelopment Ready Communities Virtual Academy. They host it each year, so this is for the fall of 2027, 2026. And that's 7 sessions. They're 1 hour. They're during the lunch hour. They go through the RRC best practices. So we've had a number of different local officials that have gone through the training and found it to be useful. It goes through, economic development, zoning, master plan, public participation, variety of different presenters. And so I think it is helpful for anyone who is available and interested. It's no cost. You can just sign up through the link that I sent out. Wanted to mention, we had talked last meeting about the survey to the business owners, and then we presented that survey to the Corridor Improvement Authority Board. They liked the approach, they reviewed it, they made a few comments on the survey questions. We did decide to delay rolling it out until after the summer season. It's just so busy with business owners. We felt like sending it out right after Labor Day would make the most sense. So we are going to delay that and send it out in Labor Day, and then have a reminder go out in October to kind of coincide with one of our quarterly breakfasts that we host. Last thing I did want to mention regarding the 3-foot fence, I do think we updated our language recently. We never had that requirement for the height of the fence. And so I do think that, that was kind of rolled in based on Giffords-Webster best practice recommendation not to have high fences in your front yard. I go to other communities, I see some they do allow higher fences, especially when you're on a busy road. So I think limiting a fence, having it set back from an intersection makes a lot of sense. Right now, we require it to be 25 feet from like an intersection just to ensure sight distance. But I think in the absence of an intersection, it would be reasonable to consider, allowing for a privacy fence for residents that are on a busy road. So I would be happy to work with the Planning Commission on some ordinance language if you were interested in taking a look at that.
How would you define a busy road?
I guess I would let the property owner define a busy road, and we could certainly do some research, but I would be comfortable allowing anybody to have a fence in their front yard if that was something that the Planning Commission was comfortable with. I don't see a huge reason for not allowing a fence. I mean, I think that to allow for kind of that visual continuity, but I do see fences in front yards, and I don't think that there's, I think it could be a personal choice. But certainly a policy decision. We could go either direction.
Sure.
Do we need to add that or discuss it now?
We could add it as an agenda item if it's something the Planning Commission wanted to take a look
It
at.
seems reasonable to me, certainly. I mean, I get it, the 3-foot fence for like a compact neighborhood and stuff like that, but in a situation like his, it seems like that's a little bit outdated, or too newly dated, I guess.
Right. What was it before?
Nothing,
Nothing,
yeah,
Yeah.
no standard.
Yeah.
no standard, yep.
If we were to do that, do we want to modify the agenda to add that?
We could add that to next month's meeting,
Or next-
just so that I could spend a little time
Yep.
providing some research and information. So I'd be
Okay.
happy to plan to,
Give us something to respond to.
or you can modify the agenda to at least give me some feedback at the end of the meeting, whatever you want to do.
Okay, maybe we can mention that at our
Other
member
items.
comment and
Yeah,
consideration
that
of
sounds
future
good.
agenda items.
Sounds good.
We already have a nice placeholder, thanks to staff, for just that. Okay, anything else?
I guess the last item is just, we did receive some correspondence related to data center moratorium, and so did just want to say, you know, we've continued to kind of work with experts, neighboring communities, we've talked with legal counsel. We, I think Flow just recently produced a policy paper that they've asked us to review and provide some comments on. So I guess from my perspective, there's a lot coming out right now related to data centers. So I think it would be reasonable to kind of wait on adopting some of that language. We're not seeing, you know, we don't have anything in our ordinance currently that allows for data centers. So, you know, I feel, based on my conversations, that we would be in a good position to enact a moratorium if there was interest in a data center, but continue to work through data center language kind of once best practices become available. We do have our attorney here, and so.
Yeah.
I would defer to-
Well, there's a lot of municipalities that are just adopting a moratorium because they're feeling nervous. You know, that's something you could do if you wanted to. And just as when we do a moratorium, we generally do a regulatory moratorium, and then we have to follow with a zoning ordinance moratorium. So if that's something you want to do, we could move that along, you know, fairly quickly. If you feel there's no immediate danger of a data center coming to your neighborhood, then you could start to work on something. My law partner is drafting in a template ordinance for the Michigan Townships Association, which would be, you know, just a very basic template that you could then use as a starting point. Or we can, as you said, you could work with other, you know, municipal, you know, MSU Extension, U of M, anyone. There was a data center book put out, a guidebook by U of M that was put out. You may have that already. So it is changing so fast that it's a little bit hard to jump in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, because we keep getting new information almost every day. So whichever way you decide to go, we can assist you with that, if that's what you want.
What is the process? Would it start that discussion, or is at least the request for the moratorium to start here and we pass it up to the board?
It could go either way. Part of it would be a regulatory ordinance that the board would adopt without, you know, a planning commission necessarily. Obviously, they want your input, but it wouldn't be a zoning ordinance text amendment. And we would, you know, have a companion zoning ordinance text amendment. What we have been doing is putting in zoning ordinances, first of all, a general moratorium authority. So if later on a different moratorium came your way, you would not have to recreate the wheel in the zoning ordinance. And so then we would amend the zoning ordinance to have a general moratorium authority for a limited period of time, you know, with one extension or two extensions by resolution, and then a second, you know, in a specific zoning district. The specific moratorium is for data centers. We will not accept any applications or process applications, you know, while we're in a moratorium. So it would be a two-part test, step,
Okay.
really.
Okay, it looks like a second item for item number 10.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Sure.
And I know, just to add to Catherine's comments, that is the direction that Garfield Township is going. They're amending their ordinance to give them the mechanism for both the data center moratorium, but also other moratoriums in the future.
Do they have a formal request as of now?
I can't speak in detail on that. What I've heard just in talking with their planner is that it sounds like they have a request that was an incomplete application
Okay.
for a smaller scale data center, not a large scale.
Okay.
Any other questions for Claire? Okay. If not, we'll bring it back and talk through approval of meeting minutes from June 2nd. Any additions, corrections, alterations?
I'll move to accept the Planning Commission meeting of June, the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting on June 2nd, 2026.
Thank you. Motion by Paul, seconded by Steve for approval of the meeting minutes from June 2nd, 2026. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next up is new business before the Planning Commission. We'll start with sketch plan review 1050 at US 130, or excuse me, US 31 North. Claire, do you want to kind of get us started on this, and we'll start talking through it?
Sure, yeah, and we have our two applicants here with us tonight, but this is a parcel that you are all very familiar with. This is, I think, the second time that it's gone through Planning Commission site plan review process. I will clarify, because there's been a few different hotels along that corridor. This is, the parcel that we're looking at is not the one right at the corner of US 31 and 3 Mile Road, but it is two down, so it's just to the east of the Hampton Inn parcel, right in between Hampton Inn and State Park. It's about a little over 4 acres in size, and so it's currently vacant. It's been cleared by previous applicant developer. What is in front of you tonight for sketch plan review is a multifamily development. So you'll see that it's a mix of apartments, hotel, restaurant, retail, pool. They are proposing 110 apartment units and 112 hotel units. So I thought that was an interesting mix. I haven't seen that before in an application. They also included is a little over 5,000 square foot restaurant as well as retail. And also, this is the first time that I've seen this in East Bay Township, but they're looking to do parking garage. So they're looking to put 111 parking spots that would be underneath usable area, which I think is kind of the direction that we're moving with some of our planning. We're looking for kind of more efficient use of space along the US corridor with the beach district, and that's kind of what we've heard through our public visioning process. A few just zoning considerations that I will mention. So they're looking to do multifamily. Previously, that was a special land use permit, but since amending the ordinance, we do allow multifamily as a use permitted by right. So this would be in front of the Planning Commission as a normal site plan review. There's nothing in here that requires special land use permit. They would need to get a variance because they're proposing two driveway entrances. And, part of that is Metro Fire requires that from emergency access standpoint. When you have that many dwelling units, we require two means of ingress and egress. But the parcel is not large enough or wide enough to have the two driveways at the spacing that we require in our zoning ordinance. So variance would be required. That has been secured in the past by the Zoning Board of Appeals, but it's since expired because the construction needs to begin within a certain period of getting a variance. I would definitely recommend that the Planning Commission and/or ZBA look at, if two driveways were granted, having some sort of a condition that one of those driveways is closed in the future upon a future access connection to 3 Mile, because that's really what we're kind of working towards with our access management plan, is to reduce the number of driveways along US 31 to help with safety, access management, pedestrian connectivity. So that's something we could look at. And then I also will just mention, there is a 50-foot vegetative buffer setback from the creek. So the creek is not on this parcel. Mitchell Creek, but it does, the setback encroaches into the parcel, so that's another item to take a look at from a zoning perspective. And I believe they have since amended their draft plans to move it back further away from the creek, so. But that is all that I have this evening, and
Any questions for Claire? And the applicants are here. Come on up.
Good evening.
Thanks for being here.
Planning Board. My name is Durade Marcus. I am one of the, part of the ownership group that's owned this property for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. I appreciate Claire's comments. Yes, we are back. We originally had a hotel plan here years ago, and obviously COVID hit, things changed, and we just thought we'd go in a different direction. After talking to many consultants and seeing different developments in these types of towns where there's beachfront and there's beach activity, whether you're in Florida or whether you're on the West Coast or wherever, there's a lot of condo-tels, which are condo and hotel type developments, and we thought this would be a very unique spot to do such a development. Instead of condos, we do apartments with a boutique hotel attached, and we thought we'd have some common ground with a pool, a common lobby that services both a concierge on one side for the apartments and a hotel staff front desk for the hotel, with a nice big spacious lobby that is conducive to gathering between all the residents and all the visitors of this location. We also thought a restaurant would be a nice addition for people who live here, people who come visit here, to offer a unique restaurant experience as well with some ancillary retail. We propose a roof deck, which we see as a very popular and highly sought amenity, and amenitizing the rest of this development where we can with outdoor grills, outdoor patios. We are trying to save as much space by doing underground parking, so we would build the structure on stilts with underground parking underneath, at grade below parking, so as to maximize the potential of this development. Claire is right that there are 2 driveways. We did get a variance once. We think that 2 driveways are necessary here just based on the layout and the capacity of this development. We are not opposed to closing a driveway if the future allows us to have a cross-access to 3 Mile Road. I mean, I think that's a great plan, and we would love to join that plan. But I think, we would seek a variance to do that. And I think if you look at it on paper, it calls out for 2 driveways. I just think 1 driveway would be a very difficult proposition here. Other than that, we are planning 110 apartments, which may shrink or may increase depending on the final layout and the demands. We have 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bedrooms planned. The hotel rooms may also go up or down a little bit depending on the size of the rooms if we do bigger rooms. Our information that we get, the city is so tremendous. I mean, there's just such a demand for these things, and we're always trying to cater to what the needs are. So we are continually evolving this room count and continually evolving the the apartment layout. And that's basically what we have. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have about this.
Questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mindy.
Claire mentioned that you've already done a redesign based on the setbacks of the creek.
Correct.
And the other thing that I see that we talked about a lot with the last hotel is I don't see the cross connection with the Hampton.
So we can't force the Hampton to give us a cross connection. Obviously, when the Hampton comes for something in front of this board, whether it's a remodel or request, we would grant the cross access to Hampton. When the Hampton comes before you for whatever request they would require, say, okay, we'll give you that request, but you're going to cross access into this new development here. So that way, they would have to ask you something, and then you would force that as a condition upon them. So in our development, we would agree to cross access to Hampton once it's allowed.
But I don't see that location on here.
Oh, I apologize. It's right at the end of the driveway. I mean, it's something that we'd have to work with your engineering department to see exactly where they would have to. If you look on the west side, where our entrance is, it basically would run that road straight ahead.
Those are
You see the arrows going in and out,
Yeah,
so we would just continue
I
running
think it's right
west.
there.
And, that would get configured ultimately by, obviously, your staff and your engineers on and how that road continues.
I do not see that.
Maybe Claire can,
Yeah.
Oh, you're further
So
up.
I think
Okay.
we would need to, we would potentially need to have it at the back of the parcel, but we can take a closer look at that.
either way, I mean, once you tell us where and how, we would be,
Because right now, right now it's not on here, there's bushes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
it is not,
It's not on here, right?
right. I don't believe.
That's
the-
what my question was.
I don't believe the exact location, but that's something that we would work with your staff to find out where it would go and how we would accomplish that. But we are open to obviously granting cross-access.
The other question or concern I have with this project is where you can put the snow.
The snow? Well, I mean, there is parking and there are, curbs all around, and that's how we would have to mitigate it. Obviously, in the winter time, the hotel is not as busy. The apartments, whether they're people who live out of state or downstate or not here full-time, so we would have to use parking spots and corners and curbs and mitigate it as best that we can.
Those are my comments.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Rhonda.
Question on the garage. So the hotel will be on stilts, and the parking will be under grade or at grade?
At grade,
At, okay. I thought
and
I
on
heard you
both,
say
it's on both sides of the apartments and the hotel.
At grade. Okay.
On,
Curiosity, would you, sorry, Paul,
no,
would you lease the restaurant and retail, or would you operate it?
We are in the hospitality business. We do own restaurants. It would probably be one of our concepts that we would do.
Okay.
okay. On the parking itself, you've got 210 parking spaces, which sounds like a lot, but then you've got, right now, 112 hotel units and 111 of the, or 110 apartment units, some of which are two-bedroom and three-bedroom.
Correct.
So what would be the parking arrangements for the rental folks? Would they have more than, would you allow more than one car?
So your code, I believe, calls for 1.25 vehicles per bedroom. Is that right?
There's a range.
There's a
So
range, okay.
we have a minimum and a maximum, and generally, yeah, in addition, if you are open to the public, like with restaurant and those types of things, then we'd make some other.
So what we have seen that usually one car per one spot usually ends up working. There will be an occasion where someone has two or three cars, and, we would have to accommodate for that. But I don't see a situation where we would not have enough parking spots to park people if we just follow your code. So it's always a situation where there's people that leave for work, people that come for work, people that are on vacation, people that are not here. The hotel is not in full capacity, so there's always empty spots that are available. It isn't, the scenario, the doomsday scenario is that every apartment complex is filled, every hotel room is filled, and every apartment complex has come there with two cars. That's just not a realistic scenario that occurs in these types of developments.
Now, I was just wondering if you had some formula that would come up with, aside from the zoning.
Right, we typically like to do 1.25 to 1.5 cars, but I think 1.25 is probably more practical in this situation. And so that's kind of the zoning, that's how we,
I believe you can go down to one.
2-1 on this situation.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yep.
Anyone else? I got a few. So just curious, will the hotel itself be operated, like, do you have a flag kind of in mind?
Our original concept was a Hyatt House. When we came here 4 or 5 years ago, we still own that franchise, right? So it would be a Hyatt brand.
Next up is tied to the rental units themselves. Is this something where you'll be looking to do like any type of income restriction on any of those? Or is this going to be market rate?
It would probably be market rate.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Only curious because when I also look at the site, I'm thinking about stormwater management. You thought about doing any type of like a green roof?
We haven't thought about a green roof. I don't know what your code calls for, to be quite honest, at this point, but, we We are
We allow
open.
for them, we don't require them.
No requirement.
I mean, we can definitely talk to our design team to see how that interplays with this development, and we're not opposed to it. I just have to go back and put pen to paper on it.
Sure. The only reason I bring that up is because I know that deck, and will that be just one level at grade then? It won't be two?
Parking?
Yeah,
Correct, just one level underneath.
Okay.
On the outskirts of the property.
got it, got it. Only because in other communities, we've seen this type of parking, if you ever had the desire or the need, some of that could be eligible if you wanted to go down the route of like income restriction through TIF. And in the state, I don't know if that's something that you want to pursue long-term, but,
I don't think that's a development that's called here.
yeah,
But again, we will review everything as things evolve, but I think this is more of a market rate type development here.
I'd agree with you,
Okay.
especially for the location. Just trying to get all that sorted out. And actually, the last thing I had was in that connection to the Hampton, have you guys had communication or formal communication with that team?
That Hampton, it's managed by, it's managed by a different management company almost once a year. A different management company comes in. We actually tried to buy at one point, and they didn't want to sell. To be quite honest, I don't know who the new management company is. It's owned by a conglomerate that owns several Hamptons, and you can't speak to ownership, you can only speak to management. So I don't know who management is these days. We will reach out. We haven't had luck in the past, but, something that also we can pursue just to see if we can, reach out and touch someone over there.
Right, right. I really like the creativity of it, honestly. I like the mix of uses on that site, especially kind of a little bit of housing and a little bit of hotel and a little bit of public use, frankly, for those that live around the region to activate the space, and especially in the wintertime. I think that's a really smart move, so kudos to you guys for thinking of that outside the box. I have nothing further. If anybody else has any closing comments, or Claire?
Have you thought about if it's practical to do, if you're doing two drives, one's an in, one's an out?
That's not how.
That's not how it's shown, but I'm just
It's
saying.
not,
if there's thought
it's
into it.
shown in as two-way traffic on both. I can't commit to that. I need to go back to the drawing board with my engineers to see if that's something that's feasible, because what's impacted is how do people get into this place? And, how do they get out? Sometimes you need more than just one relief and one ingress and egress. And that's what, that's something my consultants in the hospitality space and in the residential, multifamily space, they give me that information,
And everything's going to change next year because we all don't know exactly what's going to happen at that intersection with that new light.
Right, and, there's even talk, I know Claire sent us that there's a bridge that may be coming in or an underground, and we'd love to participate with that. We think that'd be a great addition to the entire corridor and a very good thing for this entire corridor, and we'd love to jump in on that and be partners in that type of situation. So, we want to make this site the best that it can be. If you look at some of our developments, if I can send Claire a kind of portfolio of our developments, we do really Class A work. We don't skimp, we don't take shortcuts. We try to do the best that we can in all the developments we do. We take great pride. If you walk into some of our plazas or some of our hotels, you won't see a cigarette butt on the floor. I mean, that's how meticulous we are about our developments. And we take the same pride of ownership in this type of development as well.
Go ahead, Mindy.
The only thing that I would recommend is there's some bike racks or something out
I
back.
believe we have that.
It says outdoor fitness in this, but there,
Yeah,
just,
we'll add that for sure. We'll make sure that's in there in the final plan.
I have just one comment. So I did share with this development team that Michigan Department of Natural Resources, through kind of State Park and the bridge discussion, they have recently undertaken a study, kind of an independent, they hired a consultant to look at the property that they own along the corridor and feasible locations for them to put in a pedestrian bridge or a tunnel. So they are seriously considering different options along that corridor. I do think the reason I sent it to this team is because I think that that could be an opportunity for partnering as the DNR moves forward to potentially funding a bridge and/or tunnel. It's looking more like a bridge was more feasible. So even if it wasn't directly on this property, if there was some sort of a TIF plan, whether that was workforce housing or some other, way of land banking and looking for additional, I think that that could be a revenue stream to benefit this development as well as the broader community. So
Didn't the land bank buy this for a day?
They did land bank it
Okay.
for a short period, yeah.
So that you could use that as your TIF on that land bank, right?
Definitely looking.
They have explored that, yeah, in the past, so.
Is it local only? Maybe.
Yeah, but it was for the bridge, so that's,
Right. I don't know how far that'd go with the state.
yeah, but if the state's on the hook for putting the bridge back up, they might be willing to do it that way. I don't know.
Just an option to explore.
I like that
I think it
option.
could be a community benefit.
I agree with you. And pay for stormwater management on the roof.
No taking on it.
Yeah, so like with the TIF plan, you could use that for a variety of public infrastructure, which includes stormwater. So green roof, while it's not required in the ordinance, that could offset the amount of retention basin or
And
other
special
types
pilings
of-
in case you
yeah.
need.
You've mentioned it, we will definitely take a look at it. It may be something that's, very practical and actually benefits us greatly, especially with the layout of how we envision this. So it might be an easy thing to do for us.
Last question for me. Sorry, I'm backtracking, but what's your timing look like?
We would like to start break ground sometime in '27, probably once the weather breaks. If we fast-track this approval, I get construction drawings between now and, end of the year. I get my bids, I get my contractors in. Hopefully, I'm ready to start in March, but maybe April or May, who knows? I mean, just, I would love to see that happen ideally, just, you get turned left and right sometimes as you develop these things. But, sooner rather than later.
Sure.
And how long is the construction?
Oh, boy, that's a very good question. I hope quick.
Please don't make it like that other one.
This is going to be, all of probably,
14 months.
no, it's not going to be, it's probably going to be all of 18 months, to be quite honest.
Okay.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a little longer, just, I got to get my plans together. I got to get the construction drawings together. I got to value engineer this thing, and then, then I can really put a time frame and a schedule to it. Right now,
I'm
I'm
not
just
gonna
really.
hold you to it.
Okay. It's all speculation. I mean, I'm just using my past experiences in bigger developments, and that's really what happens.
Soil-wise, is this something that you guys are gonna have to be pylons, like
I
foundations on this
I don't
thing?
believe so, no.
Okay.
I don't believe so, and if it's required, it is what it is at that point.
I'm just thinking of other eligible activities.
Understood. No, we hear you loud and clear.
All right, well. Feeling good? Okay.
Just make sure that the creek stream is on the drawings. That's my only.
Absolutely, yeah, we are, yep, Claire made that crystal clear for us.
Yeah, the one-
We got away from it, so,
The one comment I would put is just the way our ordinance is written, even a permeable fire lane would not be permissible under our vegetative buffer requirements.
okay. Any other questions?
I think we're there. Thank you for the
Do you have any
time.
questions for us?
Yeah, good question.
I mean, this was a sketch review. Obviously, Claire will kind of, circle back with us to what she wants to see based on your discussions, and we'll present the plans, and hopefully, we're here next time and get this thing approved, hopefully.
Thanks for coming in,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
having us. Appreciate it. Have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda is battery energy storage systems. Nothing official, but let's have a good conversation, and Claire, set the table for us, please.
Okay, so we have our attorney, Catherine Kaufman, here, who has quite a bit of expertise and experience with these, also called BESS, battery energy storage systems. When we updated the ordinance back in 2024, we kind of left a placeholder for it just because it was kind of new language, was kind of in the process of being developed. But we since have had MTA and other entities provide some model language. So I know that we presented that last 2 months ago in June. Planning Commission reviewed it. The guidance that I heard back from the Planning Commission was that you were interested in having some provisions that would facilitate these alternative energy, but there was concern about having real large-scale systems, especially in our agricultural district, given the proximity to residential. We don't have just like a standalone agricultural district. All of our agriculture also allows low-density residential, which can be up to 1 unit per acre, which would be pretty significant impact with a large-scale system. So I think kind of what we discussed was allowing for like an accessory battery energy storage system or smaller scale in the agricultural district and some of the other commercial districts, but really limiting the larger scale systems to our industrial district. But Catherine and her team have assisted with drafting the model ordinance, or the proposed ordinance language that's in your packet. Nicole also assisted with that, and with that, I'll turn it over to Catherine to kind of go over.
So this is based off the Michigan Townships Association template ordinance, or sample ordinance, I should say. You know, I don't want to belabor it if you talked about it a month or so ago, but for battery energy storage systems, you could get a 100-megawatt project on, approximately 15 acres or something like that. So I don't know how much industrial land you have here. I don't know how much is zoned industrial. I don't know how much is empty or vacant, or what your master plan might show for additional industrial land. So,
You have close to 300.
okay, so you have, and generally, they like to have a substation located nearby to them or on the same property or the same development. So the way this is written is we define, as Claire kind of said, what an on-site system is, which is used for my own use on my site, a small off-site, which is up to 50 megawatts, and then a large off-site, which is 50 megawatts or more, which then would trigger into the Public Act 233. As you've already talked about, on-site battery storage systems, that's just an accessory use for whatever type of use might want it, a school, a office building, whatever. And then we say, you've identified, or Nicole has helped you write, battery, small off-site could be in the ag or in the industrial with special land use, large off-site could be industrial only. The setbacks here, number 4, page 3 of 13, number 4, these setbacks are a little bit more than the state law, which is perfectly fine, because this is a workable ordinance, okay? This is not a compatible renewable energy ordinance. This is more restrictive than the state law. So, for instance, in the state law, it's a 50-foot setback from a property line. It's 50 feet from the road right away. Those are the same, 300 feet from the outer point of a wall. 100 feet, so, excuse me, you have 100 feet here, so that's more restrictive. The height matches the state law, the fencing matches the state law, the sound matches the state law. No, the sound is more restrictive, because the sound under the state law is measured at a community building off-site. This measures it at the property line. So that's more restrictive. What this ordinance also does, which is kind of nice, which we've worked on a lot through our own experience, it has the screening component to it. It talks about the drive should be permeable. There's decommission, one thing we put in a lot of ours, we want to make sure there's an emergency response plan, a fire response plan. A lot of the concerns with the battery energy storage is fire, or also called thermal runaway, okay? So you want to make sure you're getting an emergency response plan, a fire plan. We have a section in here about if you add to your battery storage, if you somehow increase the megawatts on the battery storage, we're going to either come back and look at this again, or we're going to have additional requirements met. The decommissioning requires a plan, and then also we're going to ultimately flip it over and make that into an agreement. So it's fairly typical. I don't know if there's any specific sections you want to talk about, if you want to talk about Public Act 233 in general, however, whatever questions you might have for me. The things we're seeing with battery storage is, you know, when you think about a solar project, it can be thousands of acres, okay? The battery storage is much more compact than that. So places where you thought you would never have renewables can now have renewables because of battery storage. And there's a need, you know, I guess I should say it this way. There's so much renewable energy being produced that it has to go somewhere to be stored, to upload it to the grid when there's capacity on the grid to be uploaded. So you will see some of these projects just standing by themselves in the middle of a field, but they're close to a substation, or they're on a power line, there's a connection point they're going to connect in. And so we're seeing them in places that we had not anticipated we would see renewable energy projects. So the way you've drafted it here is these larger projects will go in your industrial district, which seems appropriate. And then whether or not you'd want, and it would be special use, right? Okay. So you'd have the ability to make sure all these conditions were satisfied. I think we added in here a section about a community host agreement. I think it's in here somewhere.
Under K.
Yeah, so, I mean, that, if they go to the state, so if you take a step back and understand Public Act 233, and maybe you understand all this from Nicole, I don't want to belabor it for you. But Public Act 233 says if you have a battery storage 50 megawatts or larger, a solar project 50 megawatts or larger, or a wind project 100 megawatts or larger, the developer can go to the Michigan Public Service Commission. The only way you can prevent them from going to the Michigan Public Service Commission is if you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance, which is CREO, okay? Compatible Renewable Energy Ordinance. That ordinance can be no more restrictive than the state law. So in our opinion only, anecdotally, what we've seen is if somebody has a CREO, you go through the whole special use process, people come, everybody's, wants to know what's going to happen, and they want to say, well, can we have greater setbacks because this is going to be next to my house? My house is going to be, 50 feet off the property line is going to be this battery storage component from my house, and you have to say, no, we can't be any more restrictive than the state law. And the one case we had, where we had a CREO, the citizens were infuriated. We had to approve it because it met all the standards of the state law, and we approved it. The county was sued. The county was reversed by the circuit court judge, and it's now up on appeal at the Michigan Court of Appeals, and they have also chosen to go the MPSC at the same time. So we don't really see many people adopting a compatible renewable energy ordinance because it's so restrictive that in many cases, municipalities feel it's not protective enough. So they choose to go down this road of a workable ordinance, which is what this is, which is more restrictive than state law. And when you have a workable ordinance, the developer can choose to go with your workable ordinance, or they can choose to go to the MPSC. Anecdotally, again, in our experience, 95, 98% of the time, they will choose to go through you, through the township. It's faster, it's cheaper, and they feel like they can get a better rapport. They know they can go through the special use process and they will see what's going to come out. They start coming to your meetings ahead of time, they hear what you're talking about, and they see if you're willing to, have any kind of project like this at all. So I didn't bring a list, but if you ever want to just Google Michigan Public Service Commission PA 233 cases, there's about 10 cases right now. 10 or 11 that are at the Michigan Public Service Commission. And the MPSC has a year to work on their applications and review them. So all those are still in process. None of them have been decided yet. We have heard anecdotally that the MPSC does a very thorough job. They get a lot of background information, et cetera. So this is a kind of policy decision. Looks like you're going with a workable. Sounds like we've already decided that. So this is the proposed parts of the workable. If you have any questions, or you want to ask me anything, you want to tweak any of these sections, but this is very typical of what we've seen other municipalities adopt.
Now, remember, you can adopt this, and someone can come in and start talking, bringing a site plan, special use application to you. If they don't like what you're saying to them, or they don't like your ordinance, they can pull out, walk away, and go to the Michigan Public Service Commission, just so you understand that. They generally don't like to, but, I can't say that a project wouldn't come here that would say, we're just going to the MPSC. If that does happen, then you will get intervention funds. You will get money from the developer. They have to give it's up to $150,000 between the affected local units. Here, that would be your township and the county. You'd each get $75,000, and you could hire an attorney to go represent you at the MPSC. So that's the issue with the battery storage. The biggest concerns seem to be thermal runway. Does our fire department have the equipment and the knowledge to do what they need to do if a fire breaks out? What kind of gases or pollutants might be released into the atmosphere if there's a fire? And really, other than that, there's not a lot to it. Through the Michigan Association of Planning, I don't think you went on that tour, but I think there was one up here. We were able to go see a battery storage project down in Coldwater, Michigan. And it's right next to the freeway, so the sound that it produces, I couldn't hear over the freeway sound. It's next to a substation, and it's just out on the edge of a freeway, and it was not, in my opinion only, of course, everybody feels differently. It didn't seem like that big a deal to me. But I can answer any questions you have. There's a lot of components to this. You're going to want to take a decommissioning plan. You're going to want to figure out, we're going to want to have an agreement on that. We're going to have that plan memorialized into an agreement. So if the project's sold, we have the ability to go after the second party in the process who holds that. And, we're going to always want to make sure that we know exactly, and we always usually require annual training for our fire departments and things like that.
Go ahead, Mindy.
Go ahead. Do you want to go first? I was just going to make a couple quick comments. So we will definitely send this over to Metro Fire before we set any type of a public hearing, just to get their feedback on it. I will mention that we do not have, as you know, our transmission line is in our agriculture district, not in our industrial district. But I still, at the same time, feel that there is, still opportunity for expansion in the future, and having some opportunity to develop this like a BESS system in the industrial district. I think starting there would be a conservative approach, even though there is, those transmission lines are in the agriculture district. That would still allow somebody, the way that this ordinance is drafted, that would allow a developer to come in and build a smaller scale BESS system. So that's all that I had.
I wanted to mention one other thing. I think I looked at your minutes from the last time you discussed this, and there was discussion about essential services or something?
Yes.
Okay. I would like you to tighten up your essential services, if you need to. I don't know what it says. Definition, because there have been developers that have tried to use essential services to get a project anywhere they want it to be, because generally the essential services will say it doesn't have to comply with local zoning, or it can go anywhere, or it may be a permitted use, something like that. So there is a distinction, at least in our minds, between like a solar energy or wind energy, which is producing energy, versus a battery storage, but we wouldn't want any of them to be considered essential services because of the impact they have. So if you'll take a look at your essential services definition, you may need to tweak it, because there can be some very aggressive developers that want to move in that way, and, even to the extent where they would try to bring litigation to have you, prove up, or, appeal you make a decision, it goes to the zoning board of appeals, they'll appeal that to circuit court, that type of thing.
Have you considered the development out there for like residences and small retail operations, putting in a storage? I mention that because this is right on point. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal the other day where a company is actually developing these things that they're almost the size of a refrigerator. And they're finding, they've already put in like 25,000 of these things. So I was just wondering whether or not that's something we want
Yeah.
to be considering.
So in the definitions, there's a definition of an on-site battery storage that says this is for accessory use that serves the need of the on-site user, the consumer on-site. So that's exactly what you're talking about. And there's some amendments to Section 2 is on-site energy storage system for, the smaller projects, just like you're discussing. It's building permits required, energy storage can't be more than 1 megawatt, and coverage, lot coverage, can't exceed lot coverage. So I think that's for the smaller projects, and yes, that's in here.
Okay.
Question? Mindy had a question.
I have a couple questions. About what is the cost for somebody to go through the MPSC, the permit application?
I don't know what their cost is, a lot, because they have to do a lot more studies. There's more involved. Just anecdotally, the developers are generally largely resistant to doing that, and then they have to pay $150,000 of intervenor funds right out the door. So I don't know what the actual cost is. I'm sorry, I don't have an idea. All I know is they generally don't want, most of them don't want to. Some of them will go to the MPSC. Most try not to.
Okay, and my next question is with regards to the decommissioning plan, is there a financial backing of that plan?
Yeah, so when you take the decommissioning, you're going to take some type of financial surety, either a letter of credit or a surety bond, something like that, okay? We are not going to hold millions of dollars in our pocket. What's important about that decommissioning, there's a couple things that's important. Number one, we want to know how much it's going to actually cost us to remove them. And this is not as challenging as like 8,000 acres of solar panels. This is a little bit more easier to understand and quantify. But you're going to want to make sure that if they give you a cost from their engineer, you're going to want to have an engineer review that cost to make sure it's accurate. Usually we require that cost be reviewed every 3 year, 5 years, some type of periodic time period, so you can make sure you're still holding adequate funds, all right? And if they have to, increase that bond that you're holding or whatever. That's another reason is we would have a decommissioning agreement, is that we can make sure we can always go after whoever holds the project. A lot of times, these projects are developed by one applicant, and as soon as they're approved, they could be sold right away to somebody else, like, very quickly, within a month or two. So you really need, luckily you have professional staff here, which some other places don't, but they're going to need to make sure they're still holding a bond, that before that is sold, that the bond is transferred to the new owner, that you've always got that coverage in your hand, or somehow have the decommissioning funds available. If any of your projects in PA 116, which probably may not happen, but if it is, then the state will also take a bond on any lands that are in PA 116, and that's more likely on the solar projects. So in that case, we could be double bonded, at least on part of the project. So you will want to make sure that somebody with some sense is holding a bond. I have a very small rural township by Olivet, Michigan, that is holding a bond for $14 million. And it came by FedEx. They're only in the office one morning a week. It sat on the front door in a FedEx envelope for days. Okay? And occasionally, every once in a while, I just say, does somebody know where that bond is? And they're like, yeah, it's in the safe. And I'm like, okay. So luckily here, we have a little bit more professional staff to help us out, but, we just want to make sure that the township is never run short by not having those funds to decommission.
Thank you.
I had a question. I'm just wondering, do you usually see that these are sited contiguous with like a large renewable energy generating project, or I've read that sometimes they just use these for like grid smoothing, like they take
Yeah.
power, or in your experience in Michigan, are they always next to a
So,
big place?
Until recently, within the last 12 months, there have been standalone projects. Before that, they were usually with like a solar project. It
Okay.
would be solar plus battery storage. Now, because, as we work through the legislation that says we have to be in, I don't have the numbers exactly right, but I think it's 60% renewables by 2030. You have to understand, it's a huge jump, where I don't even remember what we are now, but we're at 2026. So as all these, as DTE, as Consumers Energy, as, electric co-ops are getting their renewable energy lined up, they have to make sure that, and so the battery storages are just popping up all over. I have a very small township over in Oceana County, it has no zoning, and they got a 400 megawatt battery storage project. They didn't know anything about it. It was almost all done, and finally somebody called me, and we were able to negotiate a development agreement, which gave them these types of protections that they would have never had, and luckily they had a good company that would negotiate with the township, and we were able to do all that. But it's just out in the middle of a farm field, along a power line, okay? So where there is capacity in the grid, and when the company, either solar, wind, or battery storage, they apply to put their power into the Midwest Interconnection Grid, I forget what it's called the MISO-Q. And that process can take 2 to 3 years. So once they have that, they're in the process to get that approval, or they know where their connection's going to be, it's very hard to move them off to another site, right? Because they've already had 2-3 years. We heard of the previous gentleman talk about everything he has to do up front before he even comes here. That's the same kind of analysis with the energy companies. So it's very hard to move them off that. And you may see these, that's why the battery storage are popping up in areas that people never anticipated they would have to deal with a renewable project. And they're much more standalone.
And my other question was for Claire, have we had any interest? No, okay.
Good to know.
Is there something in here addressing existing substation locations and the ability for them to expand?
No, I don't think we have anything like that in here. No. I'm not sure, are you saying like you prefer that these projects must go near an existing substation,
I'm just
or?
saying if there was a utility that had a substation in the township and wanted to do a battery storage next to it, and they're already established here.
That's
This
fine
one
now.
addresses it.
So our limitation right now is industrial district only for these things. So if you had one of those, let's say there's a substation out in the ag area, that wouldn't be allowed under this type of, the way it's drafted right now. So you could, there's things you could do. We don't like to rezone industrial out in the middle of ag, you could do a conditional rezoning, there's things you could do. But right now, it's drafted, I think, as Claire mentioned, just a conservative approach to start this way and see, obviously, if a substation came in and said, we want to do this, you'd have to think, do we want to amend this ordinance? Do we want to let them do a conditional rezone? Do we want to do something different? And then you think to yourselves, again, if it's over 50 megawatts or larger, they can walk around us and go to the MPSC anyways. So do we try to figure out something here locally that we might be able to live with, or do we just say no and see if they're going to go to their other options? And I forgot to mention, there is, through Eagle, if you have a local approval process and you approve projects locally, you're eligible for an RRCA grant, which is like Renewable Readiness Community or something grant. It's 5,000 a megawatt. So when I'm talking about this little township that was, 400 megawatt battery storage, their township hall, they don't have a bathroom in it, okay? So, they're going to get $2 million. And to some people, that is attractive. Some people don't want the money. They don't want to have anything to do with these projects. Some people find it's a way that they can, improve quality of life for their residents. They can get new fire equipment. There's all kinds of things you can do with these projects. But, it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to be open to the industry, and not everyone's willing. So if you do a workable ordinance, you're saying we are willing to consider a project on these types of terms, right? And sometimes that's not a popular decision at all. So,
I have two
yes.
questions. One is, on page 8, letter M, as I was reading through that, it feels like you're kind of bordering on like, I personally would want more of a feasibility analysis based on the site rather than just a statement that says this is feasible or not feasible. Like, to me, it's like, I'd like to see some pretty detailed information as to how this came to be the appropriate location
Okay.
versus something else, whereas this kind of just is real light, saying, we looked somewhere and
Okay.
this feels better.
And we can do that. And just keeping in mind you're workable. So we want to be workable, or our goal is to be workable. Someone comes in and says, yeah, I picked this site because I got a farmer to sell me the land, or here it's industrial, so I got somebody to sell me the land. And you're saying, yeah, but you're right next to, there's a single-family neighborhood on two sides of you. What other industrial land have you looked at, right? So I think that's what you're saying. You want to be able to do that kind of analysis. Okay.
Yes.
So I need to beef up the language in terms of providing a narrative or something as to why the site was chosen and what other alternates were considered.
Yep, like a feasibility analysis. of the
Okay,
site.
all right.
Especially since we just allowed daycare centers in the industrial district.
Great.
With the feasibility.
Yeah.
Is it a feasibility?
No, it requires an environmental assessment.
Okay.
The other piece to this, Catherine, in my head
Yeah.
though, is like, kind of like the data center conversations. Are we get ahead of ourselves?
Well, a lot of people say I would rather do nothing. Some communities feel if I do this, I'm inviting the industry in, okay?
Right.
I don't know if that's right, wrong, I don't know. I just know, especially in southern Michigan, where we have capacity in the grid in southern Michigan, and a lot of flat farmland. It doesn't really matter what you do down there. If somebody's been able to lease land, buy land, get, approval to connect to the grid, they're going to do the project. If they can't work with you, they're going to go to the MPSC. We're behind up here. There's not the demand in northern Michigan that I've seen yet, and I don't know if that's because your grid doesn't have the capacity or it just hasn't come here. It's easier to do it down south right now. So you can decide as a policy decision, whether you recommend, whether you want to table this, whether your township board directs you to move it forward. This is a policy decision. If you can always go into a moratorium, as we just talked about, but with these projects, if they're over the size, I mentioned the threshold size, somebody can walk around you and go to the MPSC. They haven't been doing that in great numbers right now, but I can't guarantee. So timing. The other thing is, right now, a lot of people, for right or wrong, and given yesterday's outcome, I don't even know, but a lot of people feel like if we had a change in our governor or our legislature, that Public Act 233 might be repealed. I have no idea if that would happen or not. So some people are saying like, well, we're just going to wait till after November and see what happens, see if there's any significant changeover in the makeup of the legislature or, the governor's office or anything like that. So this is really all up to you to decide. If there was going to be a project of these larger, so for under 50 megawatts and for the on-site battery storage, you would still have regulations, and they're part of this zoning ordinance text amendment. So those would still apply to smaller projects. The larger projects are where you might be more concerned, and who knows if you're going to get one of those or not. I don't know. So the only thing, my law partner has had a couple townships that have gone through the process. They've held the public hearing at the Planning Commission, and then they just let it sit there. They didn't adopt it at the board level. It just sat there. They'd done everything they needed to do procedurally, that if they needed to call a special board meeting quickly, adopt that ordinance because something was coming, they could do that. So that's another option.
It's kind of where my head's at, honestly.
To wait and see?
Yeah. Well, because of like the outcry that we got from the data center, like we didn't even have anything.
Right.
It was merely a discussion amongst us, and this whole place was full.
I was in Cadillac a week ago, and if you've been paying attention to what's been going down, Wexford County. There is a huge educational gap. A lot of people don't understand what this is. They don't understand Public Act 233. And they feel, very betrayed if you don't go along right with them and say, there's, oh, no way, I'm not going to do this, it's never going to happen, So it is politically, can be very sensitive, and people are very, very interested in this issue. And they combine it with data centers, which, they don't necessarily always go together, but they've kind of picked up some type of synergy at this moment.
I don't like the idea of waiting to see. I think we need something, and I think it ties into the conversation that's going to be coming up next. What does the community want from us, and more importantly, what do they want, from the township at the elected official level, and what do they want from the board? I mean, you see and hear a number of conversations, and we've been waiting. We're waiting to see what Garfield would do, and Garfield didn't have anything yet. Now, all of a sudden, maybe they have something that's not complete, the application's not, ready to move forward, but doesn't mean it's not coming back really quick. And, what if we get ourselves into this? The community is really looking for something from us. At least that's what I'm hearing.
Catherine,
But-
could you clarify just procedurally, because the way I'm kind of playing this out in my head, someone would have to bring a proposal to us. We chew on it as staff would do, so what do we do next, kind of a thing. We don't really have an application, we don't have an ordinance in play. I presume it would come to the planning commission for then beginning the process of establishing the moratorium ordinance. Is that accurate?
So moratoriums is, I think I talked to, didn't we just talk about moratoriums? Two-pronged step, right? So you could immediately have the board adopt a police power regulatory or moratorium ordinance, and then we'd have to follow it along with a zoning ordinance moratorium. So, the police power one can be done with a special meeting in 18 hours, right? And then you publish it and it's effective.
Which is good for about how long?
Well, we generally go 6 months at a time with an ability to extend it another 6 months. And I don't want to go too much down a rabbit hole on moratoriums, but there's no statutory law, there's no law that allows you to do a moratorium. It's all based on case law. So the case law is 6 months is for sure good, 1 year is probably good. Anywhere longer than that has no legal support. So when I see people doing, 18 months or whatever, I'm like, okay, hang on to your hat, because if you get an aggressive developer in there, that could be challenged. And the only thing you do run the risk of here is if you don't do anything and somebody comes along, there's a process under the MPSC, under Public Act 233, where they're going to send a letter to the township supervisor saying, do you have a compatible renewable energy ordinance? She would have 60 days to answer them. Could we, in that period of time of 60 days, slam into some type of moratorium or something like that? We don't want a CREO. I've explained why I would not recommend a CREO, but you would answer then no, and they would get ready to start the MPSC process. I have this going on in southern Michigan right now. We have been dancing around this battery energy storage company for 2 years, and he has been asking this township, will you please, please, please do an ordinance? Please, we want to work with you, we want to work with you. They'll tell you all the money you're going to get and the taxes and all the rest of it. And this township is just like, no, we're not going to do it. You have to go to the MPSC. So he finally sent the letter, do you have a CREO? We answered no. And then he said, okay, now we have to hold a meeting in your municipality. It's not a township meeting, it's by the developer. And we said, okay. And then I said, when do you give me the intervention money? And he said, do you want to work with us? I mean, we are at the door of the MPSC. And he said, will you work with us? I don't want to give you this, I don't want to have to pay you this intervention money. Can we just work with you? And it's like, no, give me the check. I mean, no. So this is how it's going to play out. You're going to have to be aware, and I'm sure Claire and Beth would be aware if this type of letter came. If you hear of people buying up land, if someone's going to come in and talk to her, she'll know. Someone will come and talk to her and say, what are your requirements, what are your regulations, et cetera. We have a variety of developers in this state right now. DTE and consumers are doing their own projects, but there's also a lot of other out-of-state developers that are doing projects, and they'll sell their power to DTE or consumers. They may sell the whole project to them. They may keep the project and just do a power purchase agreement where they sell the power to DTE or, consumers. I live by the Palisades Nuclear Plant in South Haven. I live 5 miles north of that thing. And I had somebody from Sheboygan County, I think it's Presqu'île Electric or whatever. They are in a power purchase agreement, that cooperative, with the plant in South Haven, Michigan. So this is just all moving parts all the time, if that makes sense. So you can sit and wait. You can do the public hearing if you do the public hearing at the Planning Commission, yes, it's going to be a lot. This room probably will not be big enough, okay? We might have to go to a school or something like that. It's going to be hairy. It's going to be long. It's going to be, and as much education as you can do, usually I start out giving an explanation or something, it still is not going to satisfy many people. So you decide, you could go through that public hearing, you could have that all done, and then that would allow you to just adopt an ordinance like that. Or you could decide, we're not willing to go there yet, we're not ready, we don't think we need to.
Could we do the moratorium and work on this at the
Yes,
same
you can
time?
do that. Yes, you can. The only danger is if somebody could go around to the MPSC, but that is, that's not.
They're going to do it
Yeah,
anyways.
They're
I
going
do
to
it
probably
anyway.
not want to do that. Just anecdotally, I can't guarantee it.
I think one thing I'll just mention, I do think amending our zoning ordinance to have the mechanism for the moratorium makes sense, because then we can enact a moratorium as needed, and I think that'd be a strategic move. I think adopting a moratorium on battery energy storage systems or data centers, that puts a ticking time clock on us.
Right.
And 6 months goes by quickly, especially when you're adopting like all of the steps that go through for a moratorium. We went through that process with short-term rentals. It took us almost all of 6 months to get the moratorium in place, and then we realized the moratorium was expiring, and so it took us several months to extend the moratorium. And so I think that creates pretty significant just administrative staff time, coordination, notices, that isn't necessarily going to buy you additional time. I think that it, from a policy perspective, it makes sense to say, hey, we're going to delay on this and kind of see how things play out. We've got some ordinance language that's well drafted by our legal counsel, so we could move quickly on this now, or we could sit on it and move quickly at a later date when we see that the battery energy storage systems are potentially, a more likely coming into the township. So that would be my recommendation.
But knowing the outcry and the concern from the public when we do get to the point of having, a public hearing, that could send us back for rework and rewrites and add to times and, there's, who knows what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and where we would land timing-wise. I mean, what are you guys hearing from the public? Are people
Not hearing anything.
I'm not here.
Not a word.
not aware?
Do you think that we're under pressure to
mean,
position ourselves for something like this?
Oh, Steve?
You're the
Yeah.
closest, yeah.
I have one question before we get to that. You mentioned investor-owned utility and a co-op. Does a municipal utility have any other go-around?
So municipal utilities we talked about essential services again. So I'd like you to look at your definition of essential services and make sure it couldn't be broadened or understood to mean like a municipal utility would be able to establish a battery storage facility without going through a special use approval. I've had one township read it that way, and they just it was I forget, down by us, it's Indiana, Michigan Power or something. They let them do a small solar field. We've had a couple of cities in southern Michigan that produce their own power that have gone out into the neighboring township and, bought land and then developed a project out in the neighboring township, but they've gone through the process in that township. So that's all possible. Based on, I want to look at essential services. So, obviously, let's say the city of Traverse City or Traverse City Light and Power or something came and bought a bunch of acreage out here and said, we're ready, we're going to do a battery storage project, or we're going to do a small solar project, I would like to have our ordinance written in such a way that they would still have to go through special use approval, even though they're quote-unquote public utility. And that's why I say, look at the essential services definition. That's what I would recommend.
I have a follow-up question.
We have
to this. I don't wanna
routine
step
and
on
major.
toes.
Well, I
Do you
think
have a
you're,
conflict of interest here if
I
this
don't know.
conversation goes further?
is that where you work or something?
Yes.
Okay. Well, go ahead and ask the question.
I didn't know where this was going, so I didn't think, but, I mean, do I have a conflict of interest here?
I don't, so, first of all, that's your employer. If they come, in general, when there's an ordinance that would apply across the whole township, okay? No, you don't have a conflict.
Okay.
If an application comes in from Traverse City Light and Power, then you have a conflict.
Okay.
Okay?
I just want to make sure I'm not,
All right.
okay.
You go and then I go.
Yeah, I guess I don't see the contentiousness of battery energy storage systems, certainly around data centers and large-scale solar projects I've read, but is this really contentious? Like, I mean, a lot of these things aren't that, is it really?
I've gone through 2 years and was relieved of I was an attorney for 15 years for a township.
For just the battery portion?
Because all we did was say, this can be a workable ordinance. I mean, I have people standing at meetings saying, my children are all going to die, we're all going to die, we're going to burn to death, on and on and on. So you just, yes.
Okay, all right.
You would think it would, personally, I don't think it's as bad as thousands of acres of solar panels,
The same.
but that's just my personal opinion.
Last thing that I had is, I like the strategy, by the way, and like putting the mechanism in play. Like,
agree with that.
totally cool with that. To kick the hornet's nest, and like, do a whole intro to cue this thing up, like, I almost feel like we get the moratorium in play. If something arises, then we throw in the moratorium, then we start talking about this, to which we probably have bought ourselves a year and a half of due diligence, period, before they'll move forward, they being the applicant. Second, so that's where I'm like, in my head, we got about a year and a half to 2 years to really figure this out from the point in which someone comes in and talks to Claire. So I feel like she's pretty open, got a pretty good read on the stuff. It buys us a pretty big window. Secondly, though, is we are unique in the fact that DNR owns most of the property, where it's adjacent to the property line, which is zoned natural area. That's what I was looking at, the zoning map. And in the natural area, we don't exclude all of this, right? I'm just curious if that's something we should look at, because there's a hell of a lot more power line that runs adjacent to that than the ag land. And the DNR can do whatever with their property.
Well, did you remember they tried to do it in Gaylord? They tried to, DNR entered into a lease
exactly.
with a company, I don't know, for 400 acres. It wasn't even that much, but there was huge backlash.
Great.
I think they'd be.
Grayling,
yeah.
Gaylord, somewhere there, yeah.
I think the clear cutting of the forest would be less likely or less desirable than in an agriculture district. I think we can allow it in agriculture. And perhaps not allow it in natural area. And there would always be the opportunity for an applicant to go to the MPSC,
Yeah,
right?
yes, yeah. The nice thing about having Public Act 233 is if if you don't allow it at all, you're not going to participate at all, like one of my townships downstate, they still can go to the MPSC. It's not a takings, okay? Because there's an option. So let's say somebody came in and, you ended up denying under, obviously, you'd have to apply your standards, and you'd have to have a reason for denial, but let's say there was a reason for denial, you deny it. They are not completely foreclosed from doing that project. If they're over that threshold size, they can still go to the MPSC, which makes it a little easier legally in defending, whatever decision comes out. But you're right, it will be challenging, and, especially since the other township nearby has already gone into a moratorium. I don't know if it's a data center moratorium.
data
Was it a-
center.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't had any townships really spend a lot of time with the battery energy
Yeah.
storage in Grand Traverse.
So Catherine, to Dan's point, if we had a workable ordinance, would that be kicking the hornet's nest?
I can't say,
Yeah,
okay?
I see it
Some
both
people
ways.
feel that way, that if you do this, it invites. But you have to understand, like, where are your power lines? Where are the, if our ordinance is industrial, okay, where is the industrial areas near power lines or near substations? Substations are some in the ag district. Just by having this, I don't think it necessarily invites people, but some people feel that way. They feel like you have tipped your hat to the fact that I'm willing to work with renewable energy because I've developed this workable ordinance. I think finding out where people are willing to sell land, lease land, make available, proximity to substations and things like that, that's really going to help you understand what kind of possible projects you might get here. What about your solar? You don't have anything like that? Okay. Okay. You might see a joint project or something like that. I mean, we're even seeing projects now where wind and solar are combined with the turbines, and underneath them are the panels. So it's full push on renewables.
What do you think, Mindy?
Does it make sense at all? And I'm just thinking out loud, so please slap it down if you think it's crazy. Does it make sense to do an ordinance with only regards to the on-site or the small off-site?
Well, I think you should have something for that anyways, okay?
Right.
Because anything larger than that, you could choose to say, go to the MPSC, right? So that's fine, you could do that. I think as the first question here was, what if somebody wants to have some battery storage on their own property for their own business or whatever? So we have parts of that in this ordinance. And you could do that and just leave the rest of it, and you could just say you're going to go to the MPSC or something.
We currently have.
Oh,
that.
she said,
Our
okay.
current ordinance
So
addresses
that's there
the
already,
on-site.
she says.
So if we just left it that way with our current ordinance, we allow for on-site, and if they were doing something larger, they would go to the MPSC.
But I was thinking the small off-site.
Then that would need to be adopted as
Yeah.
drafted in this ordinance.
So the benefit of doing, for the larger off-site operations, the benefit is that we can get greater setbacks, have a little bit more control over what is there, but we still are very limited in what we can and cannot request.
Well, you can, it's kind of interesting. A workable ordinance can request anything you want, but if you make it so restrictive,
Then they can.
and then it becomes not workable, right? So, that's the tipping point. If you get a developer that comes in and says, well, I'm willing to give you, a 300-foot setback all the way around, and I'm willing to, do this and that and other things, and then you say, okay, but over here, I want 500 feet because there's a subdivision over here. And they say, no, I can't do it. Then it's not workable, right? But it's likely she would have conversations, if you adopted this, you'd say, here's our ordinance, and they would design their project to that, or they would ask you to make some changes. So, I think the point is valid, though. How does it play politically if you adopt a workable ordinance? Do people see you as inviting renewables in? And that could be good, it could be bad. Some people might say, that's great, we think we need to do this. Some people could say, we don't want it here, we need it to go over here instead of us, right?
What if, I love education. What if, as a piece of this, we find out if we're dealing with honeybees or hornets, AKA, what if we had someone come in, and this has been very educational and super helpful, by the way, to just kind of like trigger it. It's a good conversation for all of us. It'd be nice to have somebody come in, maybe we host something to the general public, and we find out kind of what the general sentiment is as like a working session, a learning session, or whatever. We have a specialist come in and kind of talk through what this thing looks like, how it's functioning, what the benefits, what the drawbacks are in a larger scale. Because obviously, I mean, as much as Tracy's excited to be here, you know, there's not a lot of other folks that are really soaking up this intel. So, I don't know, I wouldn't hate that idea, just kind of like MSU Extensions, U of M, somebody
I
that
would
knows,
recommend U of M.
somebody that has some background with this.
Yeah, U of M, Dr. Sarah Mills or Madeline Kroll would come and give and they do it all over the state.
It'd be a really cool, just like temperature check, and
And if you wanted to have other municipalities here, it'd be.
Public comment during this, or just like an
Q&A, yeah.
Yeah, generally,
Honestly.
she'll do like a 30-minute presentation or a PowerPoint or something, and then she'll take questions.
Maybe we host it at the new Conservancy building down the way, 'cause it's huge and nice, rather than here.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, we're talking about, quote, the public, and I personally have heard nothing about this. I would be curious to know what is the feeling out there. My predilection is that I must rather work on something ahead of time and be prepared as opposed to just waiting until they're sitting on my doorstep. But the idea of having a good presentation to inform the public and at the same time us, and get a feel for how the public reacts to that and feels for it, I think that's something we need to do.
My only worry with that is that you're going to get the loudest voices, and it isn't necessarily going to be the public only. It will just be those who have, I mean, I agree the educational component would be great for us, but I think if you invite questions afterwards, then you're going to get people who have opinions one way or the other, and, you know, kind of fervently held opinions. That's generally what I.
You know, Dr. Mills has done this all over the state. She's the leading person in the state, and Madeline Kroll from her, it's called the Empowering, I don't know, it used to be called Graham Sustainability Institute, now it's got a different name at U of M. They are working right now in conjunction with MSU Extension on some more guidebooks. The guidebooks, I think, on battery storage is out, right? Yeah, so, I mean, you guys can look at that guidebook they produced. I would try to get her, or Madeline, from the same office. It's called Empowering, like EM Powering, or Graham Sustainability Institute.
Okay.
I don't know if this was helpful or not, but
I hope I was helpful.
I think, yeah, Catherine,
No,
you're
you're very
great,
helpful.
thank you.
Right.
I think moving forward, we will draft some ordinance language to allow for a moratorium, to have a mechanism in place. And also take a look at educational session. I could reach out to some other townships. I mean, it could be more broadly public act.
Yeah, I'd probably start with the Public Act 233
Because
discussion.
actually, the Groundwork hosted something recently for local units of government. They've been doing a lot of work as well with that, so we could,
All right.
we have some local experts. I think the Land Conservancy might be too small of a venue. They don't have a large meeting space, but we can definitely look for different options. So, okay, sounds good, thank you.
okay. Glad we got through that, and thanks for sticking in there. To our next guest, full esteem from Manistee. Claire, do you want to talk a little bit about neighborhood enterprise zones and kind of set the table for us?
Yeah, so these have been around for a while. It's an economic development tool that encourages residential investment It's similar to some of the other tax incentives that we've used for example, Central Park, Crimson, with the Residential Facilities Act. This one was amended in 2022 to kind of help facilitate workforce housing. Specifically, it no longer requires that an area is labeled as distressed. So it kind of opens up the opportunity for what districts a community can identify or put into this neighborhood enterprise zone. The goal is really facilitating infill development, but also allowing for home improvements like an addition or an accessory dwelling unit. So I think that's another benefit of this tool is it's not just incentivizing new development, it's also existing property owners updating their homes as well to help facilitate that workforce housing. So you have to qualify, you'd have to make less than 120% of the area median income, whether that's the renter or the homeowner. So this is really just an introduction. We brought Tracy in from Housing North. She's had some experience with neighborhood enterprise zones, can answer some of your questions. A few requirements of a neighborhood enterprise zone. It does need to be at least 10 contiguous parcels. It needs to have access to public water and sewer. Generally, the tax benefit that's given to a property owner that's pursuing it is for 15 years, but it can be kind of determined by the local unit of government through the policy that's adopted. And it's around 50% of the total taxes are reduced for that period of time. It needs to be income qualified. We provided a couple possible districts for your consideration for these neighborhood enterprise zones. These are based on kind of looking at opportunities to support the East Bay Beach District. So we're really looking to, promote the type of development, public infrastructure investments along the corridor, but at the same time support kind of the walkable mixed-use neighborhood that and facilitate kind of that adjacent attainable housing. So you'll see that we have one neighborhood that's kind of defined generally by the Pine Grove neighborhood and also going up 3 Mile Road as a possible district. I did go ahead and include the parcel that we discussed this evening, just in case they decide that they want to, do some workforce housing. They have that opportunity. It is a vacant parcel. And then with the other one, we have 4 Mile Road as another possible opportunity. We've got a lot of kind of attainable housing opportunities along 4 Mile within that neighborhood, as well as we did include the Ridge. I talked with the Land Conservancy. They are planning to do a small development workforce housing on 6 acres within the Ridge. They're going to carve that out. And so they thought that that would be beneficial for their plans to have that opportunity as well for a neighborhood enterprise zone. So I will say that any parcels that are approved need to have access to public water and sewer. Everything within the Pine Grove does. Within this 4 Mile, we are kind of in the process of getting water and sewer out to some of these parcels, so we could designate a district that's a little bit larger, but we couldn't actually approve any parcels or projects unless they had access to public water and sewer. But again, this could be kind of an impetus to help us extend the municipal water and sewer. So with that, I'll turn over to Tracy. And Tracy, thanks for bearing with us for kind of a long meeting, and thank you so much for being here this evening.
Problem. So you introduced a lot of what I was going to say already, but I can answer a lot of questions, hopefully. If I can't answer the question, I have the resources to find the answers to those questions. In the packet, there was in addition to the maps, there was a fact sheet that kind of briefed, which talked about a lot of what Claire mentioned. There are some additional things, but I think Claire and I had already discussed those in advance. There needs to be at least 5 existing dwelling units per acre, as well as you can have multiple NEZs, but
the total amount of NEZs can't be more than 15% of your total residential living area in the township. So, but I think we already had talked about that and discussed that when she was proposing the ones that we have in the packet. There are a couple things that if you are interested in moving forward, before you could have a resolution that you would need to do. So probably the biggest thing is you, as the Planning Commission, needs to determine that an NEZ in these areas is consistent with your master plan. And then, and you might already have the second piece, is you do have to have a statement of, a statement about housing already existing for your township. So it would just talk about what your goals are. It talks about eligibility of like individuals, sort of ADA type of things. And we have sample languages, sample resolutions. We have all that information if you are interested in that. So when we talked about the update from the new NEZ, it's actually called Workforce NEZ. They took, as Claire said, the restriction about being a designated distressed community, but they did add that up to 120% AMI. So what has been occurring is that once you are approved or eligible, the homeowner, for the NEZ, there isn't an ongoing every single year that they have to meet that requirement. So the one thing is that you can go from up to 15 years, but it has to be a minimum of 6 years. So you, as the unit of government, can determine between 6 and 15 years how long you would like this to last. Maybe it might be helpful if you have questions for me about, because I could just continue to talk on, but I don't know if you want that. Go ahead.
So the zone doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the income, right? So you can establish a zone, right, and it's at least 10 contiguous parcels, but if none of those houses in that zone qualify, then nobody qualifies. But in contrast, if one person qualifies, it doesn't mean that all 10 of those parcels have to have that
Correct.
AGI, that one person that meets can qualify. Is that
Right,
correct?
and when they qualify, what they have to do, you establish the NEZ zone, and then anybody that's interested, whether it's an existing homeowner, they have to apply for the NEZ certificate. So they would get approved. Go ahead.
To who?
To the planning, yeah. So they would have to do that, so it's not an automatic thing, but what it also is, for any new development in that area, the owner would have to qualify under the up to 120% AMI as well. But again, they have to apply to do that. Did I answer your question or not? Did it make it more confusing?
So if you have a new home, I guess maybe what's the eligible activities that qualify on a new home? Everything?
For the rehab of an existing home, it is only the new addition or the whatever is newly added. That's what qualifies.
So is it window, siding, roof qualify, or does it have to be an addition or something like that?
I don't believe it's like siding, but I can find out more specifically what that would be, what the rehab guidelines are.
Well, especially with Pine Grove, that would be rehab totally in there.
Is there, maybe this is for Claire, is there a bunch of infill opportunities in Pine Grove from a like a vacant lot standpoint, or is it, would this be mostly putting an ADU or an addition on your house or something like that?
There are some infill opportunities in Pine Grove. I think that there's an opportunity for us to revisit our zoning ordinance to facilitate more viable refill or infill.
Okay.
Because we have our historic plats, and then we have our zoning, which we did increase density and reduce lot size, but not quite enough to allow someone with two lots to be able to develop them separately.
Okay.
So I think that it warrants revisiting it, but at the same time, we have parcels in there where you can put a triplex, or you can put a duplex plus an ADU. I just spoke with someone today that was interested in splitting it, and I was like, well, you can't, but here's some other options that you have for the parcel.
And operationally, the way this would work, if they were in the workforce neighborhood enterprise zone, they would propose to do something like that, and then prior to that, they'd have to apply to us for this tax
Yes.
reduction.
Yeah.
And then they would go ahead and do that with their own money, thinking that, okay, for the next 15 years, I'm not going to have to pay as many property taxes.
Yes, and they have to apply and get their certificate, the NEZ certificate, approved prior to having any permits pulled.
Do they have to prove that they spent the money?
Well, there's an application and a checklist, and which we have all of those materials, if you get to the point that you want to move forward and do those things.
They apply for the permit and they don't do anything, clock ticks.
And it's just for what you're adding, right? The tax reduction.
Correct.
Doesn't, your existing property is the same.
Remains the same.
Okay.
Oh, so it's like a,
Did they lose any of their homestead exemption?
Do they lose their homestead exemption?
Well, if you redid the house, and now it's at 50%, and they have the homestead exemption, do they keep that, or is that?
That's really determined separately through assessing. So if they are living in that unit that they're, versus if it's an ADU that they're renting. So it would be separate from this process.
Yeah, but theoretically, you're saying is that they'd get 50% plus the homestead exemption.
There is an entire, 3 pages of assessing information fact sheet that I can send, which the answer may be there, and I can go back and look at that, but I can't answer that specifically.
So I think tonight we kind of want to get some feedback, big picture. Like, do you think that this would be a useful tool for the township to kind of move forward with working to incentivize some of this infill? I think we are seeing a desire and a demand in the township for new development on green space, but we're not getting as much reception to some of our infill zoning amendments that we've made, and I think that this would be a viable tool to say, hey, we've made some significant changes to our low-density residential district. We allow 5 units per acre. We allow a diversity of housing options. Here's a tool that we can provide to existing property owners, prospective developers, to help make this type of development more feasible. So we're kind of curious, big picture, if this is something that,
But you said prospective developers. I mean, how do they qualify?
if they purchase a 1-acre parcel and they build a quadplex on it, and they restrict income to 120% AMI or less, then they could apply for a certificate.
I thought that the person applying had to be at that income requirement.
No.
Well, it depends on whether, yeah. it
You're
could be-
renting it too.
Yeah, whether it's a
So you're
rental.
renting it too.
Yeah,
So your income could be whatever, 100%, 200% of AMI.
Or substantially more.
Exactly, fair.
So,
But it's the folks that this new ADU or addition that you're applying for a certificate, the people that you rent it to have to be less than 120 AMI.
and how do we verify that?
How do you verify the AMI?
How do you verify the income of the people?
So there is a formula that Mishta has that is a little cumbersome, but not too difficult, or some people, some units of government have gone to an organization to do that, like NMCAA has done some. So for each, like, applicant, they would screen that income eligibility, and sometimes it's been allowed that it's just an affidavit that is sworn that, from the homeowner. So there's a couple different ways to do that, and we could work through that process here. I think,
Who pays for the administrative costs?
Could be rolled into the application fee. That, it's similar, we approved with the Crimson Development, the Central Park, they have a housing TIF, but they also use the Residential Facilities Act, and so that's very similar to this in terms of ensuring that all renters are income qualified, and it lasts for a 12-year period.
But if I remember correctly, and I don't know that I'm correct here, isn't the developer responsible for making sure the income, and it's not the township's role?
But-
And this is making it a township role.
You are correct that usually it is the developer. So in the zones that were proposed, is there the option that a fourplex or a quadplex or duplex could be in those? Okay. Let me see. I mean, I do know that, for example, NMCAA, they're charging per applicant less than $100. So it's not a huge, I think it's actually $40 is what they're charging. So it isn't a huge cost burden. And based on, from across the state, what other units of government are seeing is it's really not been homeowners. A few, like ADUs type of applying for their certificate, it is more of the infill. So that would speak to that question we need to answer if you're having a quadplex and who they're renting to versus the individual who's owning the property. And a lot of times, you could be also having for sale in these zones as well. So maybe you aren't selling a quadplex or a duplex, but you could be a duplex you're selling.
Right, I get that. I'm just trying to figure out who's paying for the admin and
Right.
the person in our office that's got to do that.
Well, again, you could have that fee.
Right, but who's gonna, where does that fee come from? Is that in the application has to?
Yes, that's what I mean. You could have the application fee be a part of the cost of that.
But it's still gonna have to be tracked at the township. It's still gonna have to, there's still contact hours, if you will.
Yeah, it wouldn't be something that would be, it would definitely be some additional staff time. But I think it fits well within the housing goals that we've articulated through the master plan.
I don't disagree. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a mechanism in this act that allows for it to come out of something, right? If there's, maybe there's grant funding, like the battery thing, right? I'm just trying to figure out where that.
Yeah, I don't believe there's grant funding, but I think what the cost for the certificate, the fee that you determine, could cover that. Whether it's the hard cost, the intangible, if it costs you $40 and you charge $75. I think that is something that's an option, but I couldn't foresee grant funding covering something like that. I mean, it could be out there, but I do a lot of grant research and
Just asking.
writing.
I think it makes sense to have another thing in our toolkit to promote affordable housing. I mean, I can't imagine there's going to be a flood of applications that it's going to overwhelm Claire or whoever it's going to be. I imagine it might happen occasionally, but it's not, I just don't see it happening like.
That's what the feedback has been from across the state. It hasn't been an overwhelming, I mean, even like in the city of Grand Rapids, I think they had an NEZ, and there were 12 applications for,
And we have one example, I met with a homeowner in Pine Grove today that's doing an ADU. I think this could be a really good tool for helping to offset the cost of putting in an ADU that will be open to someone to help, providing an additional home for workforce housing.
Yeah, I say why not?
I'm not against it.
Don't say you were.
Don't get me wrong, I'm just asking.
well, sure, yeah, you're interested in the details.
It's a real question, especially when you talk about Pine Grove. They're pretty dense in there right now, and I know what the havoc that was raised with the short-term rentals. I could just try and avoid another issue.
But I am curious
Sure.
if the word rehab includes,
I would have
the
to
roof, the
do a little more
siding, the windows.
Yeah, how broad is it?
Somebody gaming the system?
I don't think it does include that, but we
I
can
don't think
double
it does
check.
either. I think it's like an addition, an add-on, you put a garage on, an ADU, but I can do some more research.
It's not changing the baseline, right?
Right, no, it is not.
But if you put a deck on, or if you upgrade the siding, and the assessors might change the assessment of the house, right? Because you're adding value to the house.
I don't think so.
But I also think about the neighbors, all of a sudden you're sitting there and then the property comes down and this, multi-family duplex
I didn't think about that.
goes right up to, and now you're right next door to a mini apartment house.
Well, that's what we're allowing with our zoning, so this would allow for for that infill to be, I think, more feasible.
They can do that now, Paul. They can do that now.
Well,
But we really haven't gotten any interest. We haven't had any applications or projects that have been.
well, they can do it now, but now you have an incentive.
Right, for sure. If you offer it up to people who are. There's what AMI.
Speaking of that 120 AMI, where's our biggest need for housing in the township? Do we have any updated numbers?
Do you mean like the income bracket or the location?
Income
So the
bracket.
county is in the process of doing a more comprehensive study.
Okay.
But the information that we have from the Housing North study that's 2023 is, that kind of 60% all the way up to 120% AMI is a need. I think the demand for rental housing is a little lower AMI, and the demand for owner-occupied housing is a little bit in that higher AMI range.
Okay.
But there's, certainly significant number of units that are still needed to meet the gap
Oh,
in
yeah.
workforce housing.
And Housing North is actually working now on its updated study as well.
Okay.
It won't be out probably until the very first part of 2027. And we are adding in some additional things, including short-term rental study in there and some very specific other criteria that we heard, across the region, people were really interested in. So that will break it down specifically.
Okay, thank you.
By AMIs.
I did not realize you
Yeah.
guys were
Yeah.
updating yours as well, so.
So if it is something you're interested in or want to talk further at some point about. I mean, we have sample resolutions, we have the assessor guide that incrementally, as the years progress, there is a portion, a percent that they increase over the time. So, there is a meeting with the assessor that you need to have. Would need to decide the number of years from the minimum to the maximum. But we have case studies, if that would help also. So we do have a lot of tools. I think it would just be a matter of Claire letting me know what you are interested in, if you are interested in anything, so.
I like the idea of it. I would also like to hear what the board has to say.
Yeah.
We could do a joint meeting.
Yeah.
And maybe I could have some questions, answers to the questions that very specifically had.
Yeah, that'd be a really good idea.
Okay?
We're required to do one joint meeting a year, and we were looking for an appropriate time.
Maybe
Okay.
we'll put battery storage.
Oh, you got,
Oh, can I go first,
you
though?
got a whole bunch of
Can
stuff
I want to
there
talk
now.
first, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Thank you
Right.
so much for, by the way,
Bring a
bearing
lunch.
through all that, and,
Well,
Super
like I said,
helpful.
my payback would be if we go a joint meeting, I'm first. So, all right.
okay.
thank you, Tracy.
I have one more question.
Yep.
What are you seeing for the timeline that most lugs are using?
Most are doing a minimum of 7 years, but they're just leaving it as up to the 15.
And how are they letting residents know that this is available to them?
Well, I mean, they put it on, information on their websites. There's been news articles, variety of community type of information type stuff.
Okay.
And the application usually on the website of the unit of government as well.
Is there any place locally here that has already adopted this? I mean, has City of Traverse City adopted it, or has any of the other
They have
townships?
not, but there's been a discussion, but that got thrown out. For a variety of reasons. But there are, like Muskegon has, Grand Rapids has, Bay City. The focus really has been that a lot of units of government are focusing on the incentives of housing TIF and making sure that they have policy for housing TIFs before they would go back and look at something like this. So that seems to be where people have headed.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving into our bonus agenda, under number 10. We're looking at, first out of the blocks is the fences conversation. How do we feel about revisiting fence conversations?
Oh, yeah, I think we should bring that up.
Does it matter zoning, fencing regulations in specific zoning categories? The fellow was mentioning he's from the Lakes area, right, specifically. Is this something that we want to kind of be focused on one spot?
I would
or
look
just
holistically at the
all the
whole
way
township.
across?
I think that I could see it in rural areas throughout the entire township being an issue. So I would like to take a look, like, for example, the city of Traverse City, I know there's a number of homes that have tall fences. Most of those are along busier roads. I can take a look at some of the other communities and see how that's addressed.
Don't forget that the road commission now has a map, interactive map that can tell you how many road counts there are too now, so that if we want to define a busy road, there's more tools available to us now.
Okay.
Whether it's speed limit or vehicle counts or something like that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Yes, let's look into it. Next up is, we were going to talk about data center moratoriums.
Right.
I feel like we've already kind of beat that horse a little bit. Do we have kind of a strategy in play now?
We'll get some
Earlier?
draft language for.
Getting the
universal
mechanism.
mechanism for
Right.
moratorium.
Okay.
But let the record reflect, we're not drafting a data center ordinance at this moment in time.
Or a data center moratorium.
Or a data center moratorium.
Right.
Good point.
Just being prepared.
Correct. Those were the two, right? Okay.
Nope, one more.
Oh,
I mentioned that we had the ZBA meeting on this particular resident piece of property. And the ZBA is running into some issues here. Specifically, we have an ordinance, 31G4, that requires a 30-foot setback from the road. We also have another ordinance, 38B2, that mandates that we have a 50-foot vegetative buffer from the normal or the average high water mark from the lake or the water area. In the Forest Lakes area, there is a number of properties that are so small that that to apply these two ordinances, in some cases, it just covers the entire piece of property. Now, as the ZBA, we're supposed to be affecting the ordinances, but yet we're up against a situation where you have almost an impossible situation, that if we absolutely put through the ordinance, we could be into a situation of a taking issue. But we do have these ordinances. So at some point, I think we need to at least reopen some discussion on our ordinances, particularly under those circumstances where the pieces of property themselves are so small or very, what can I say, strangely shaped, that some flexibility has to be adopted. Otherwise, we're just going to get variance after variance after variance after variance on this. And this one issue has brought this pretty much to light. So if we could add that, I'd appreciate it.
And this is the one you tabled?
Excuse-
The one you tabled at the last meeting?
This has been, this has been tabled a couple of times, and the problem is that it's the size of the property, where it's located, what the folks want to do, and then we're smacking up against our ordinances. It's causing a problem. But this is not the first time. We have had other issues like that, too.
In my previous dealings of designing projects, when we went for variances, it was always because if the township created the hardship by the setback or whatever on a known piece of property, you granted some sort of variance. So it would, yes, you would have that meeting, but you would be allowed to grant a variance based on the fact that the zoning ordinance restricts their use of their property that was known or was there prior. So it was like you do your best practice as far as what's more important, that 50-foot high water mark vegetative buffer or that 30-foot front yard setback, and you try to, I had numerous projects in commercial districts where the stream cut right through the center of it, but they approved it somehow.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying is that we are running into this situation, and
I have one, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But you did, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I think that it would make a lot of sense to revisit the 30-foot rear yard setback, because I think that we have a very strong backing behind our 50-foot vegetative buffer. I don't think we want to touch that or reduce that, but I think that the 30-foot setback, in some cases, is a little bit arbitrary. It's, a lot of communities do have that deeper setback from the front yard. But I think that that's something that we can definitely take a look at and would benefit the ZBA. I think it would reduce some of their burden in terms of what they're taking a look at, and would give a little bit more flexibility to applicants, especially on those really small parcels.
Yeah, that's,
Bouncing up against impervious surface calculations
But
too.
not in this situation.
not in this
Not in this
situation. This is, and I realize that the 30-foot is, in some cases, easier to deal with. The problem has been the 50-foot vegetative buffer. I mean, that's one of the things that we've been running up against a couple of times. So it's just something in the discussion, I think both topics should be at least addressed.
In this case, the 30-foot setback is from the road,
From the road,
not on the property line.
no,
It's 10 on the property line.
no, no.
Is it a specific zoning district? Or two?
Well, Forest Lakes,
Okay.
yeah.
And you think there'll be more of these in the future? There's many more? I mean, so the granting 3 variances over the course of 5 years,
Oh, that's nothing, but I mean, as far as,
There could be more.
there could be more, and we bounced into, this one particular one is a challenge,
okay, I mean,
but it's pointing up other situations that we've run into where the property sizes that were created many, many years ago were not intended for what people are trying to do right now.
yeah, I can imagine.
But are they new purchases and they're trying to do something, or they've been there for, generations?
Well, both.
And see, that's where sometimes I see the challenge, is if you buy something so small, you kind of are responsible for understanding what you can and can't do.
Well, I don't, at this point, I don't want to go into discussing any of the issues.
No, not, I don't want to go into any scenario, but I'm
No,
just saying,
right.
yeah, there comes a point where
Mm-hmm.
property owner's responsible for knowledge.
So based on some direction from the chair of the ZBA, does the planning commission want to explore some ordinance amendments that would maybe alleviate some of the
That's what the
some of
chair
the
is
stress
requesting.
that they're
That is,
dealing with?
I think that's what the chair is requesting, that we take a look at this.
I think if we take a look at it in a specific zone, that's has a commonality to it all.
Yeah, I'm,
That seems reasonable.
yeah, it is one zone, which is the Forest Lakes area.
Yeah.
That's where we have the biggest concentration of, let's just say, some very creative lines that they drew.
You've had enough of them come before you, and I don't say this lightly, like, I feel like you have a pretty good read over the history of the ZBA for a little while, so you've seen a fair share, so it definitely warrants the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Enough, though, that we feel that there is something going on here that we need to take a look at.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what your agendas look like in the preceding few months, but, yeah.
Yeah, I'll work
Add it to
with,
the
I'll work
list.
with Paul and kind of help inform agenda item that we can introduce next month.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Public comment, round 2, feels good. Okay, upcoming meeting, September 1st at 6:30 here. Shouldn't be another election, but I'd rather do the day before the meeting. And come back the next day for the same.
I can't be here that day.
And besides that,
We can bump it to the following week if, I know it's an early,
oh, the 1st, is there something
I
else
know the
going
first
on?
is an early one. If, we normally have it the day after Labor Day, if that's preferable, we could. if
That's
what-
preferable to me, but I'm 1 of 7. I'm just saying, I cannot be here that day.
Oh, on the 1st.
Yes.
Let's look. We're doodle polling live, for the record.
Doesn't matter to me. I can do it.
Doesn't matter to me.
First is fine.
Yeah. That's at least for.
Mindy wants to go to the next week.
I cannot be here the first.
Yeah. I'm
But
fine
I
with
don't
it.
have to be here.
What's the agenda looking like?
Oh, yes, you do.
I think I would say if both being equal, the 8th would give us a little bit more time, just because it's, but we can be flexible.
Oh, no, I mean, is there?
We do not have anything, any public hearings scheduled.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Got it. Nothing pressing.
Doesn't matter to anybody else?
Okay.
No, 8th works.
Move to the 8th.
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever everybody's.
No, I'm not available on the 8th, but that's okay. I can do it by tape.
Do you want to be at the thing, or do you want a month off?
I'm just saying, I can't be here the first.
Can you be here the first?
Yeah, or the 8th, yes.
Okay. Do you want to just do it the first? Get it out of the way?
If there's no, like, if there wasn't any, like, public hearings or anything, if it's just more discussion.
Discussion?
let's see.
Although I feel like we need you here for
Yeah, I
the
do.
discussion.
It's-
I cause trouble.
No, you add a good perspective to the meeting, so.
I mean, if that's what the agenda's going to be, I mean, filled with, then yeah, I mean,
It'll be quite a bit of discussion.
okay. The 8th.
8th it is.
Do you want to make a motion, just so I can go ahead and notice that?
Sure.
I make a motion to move the September meeting from September 1st to September 8th at 6:30.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mindy, seconded by Steve, for relocating the September meeting from the 1st to the 8th of the month. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 13, adjournment. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.